Ever notice how some people always find a way to blame you, even when it's clearly their mistake? That is what we're going to talk about today. And it could be related to narcissistic deflection of responsibility. Now, this is a defense mechanism that a lot of narcissists use to avoid accountability, also to protect their ego and keep control in relationships. Now, I'm going to walk you through the traits, the habits, and how that affects and keeps this going, keeps that deflection of responsibility going, and how you can recognize it and respond to it. So, we're going to get into it, and here we go. Narcissistic deflection is when someone refuses to own their mistakes and shifts the responsibility onto someone else, which could very well be you. Instead of saying, I was wrong, they say, it's all your fault. That didn't happen. Or, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have reacted this way. Everyone makes excuses sometimes. That's totally understandable and expected. We know that. All of us do that. But with narcissists, this becomes a pattern. And it's their way of protecting their fragile ego, self image, and also they believe that it protects them from guilt, fear, shame, doubt, and inferiority. And those are the five classic core content areas for narcissists. And that usually, when any of those or many of those get activated, that's where we see this deflection of responsibility as one of those maladaptive coping strategies because they can't tolerate being wrong or imperfect because they believe that equals them being broken, inferior, shameful, guilty. Then they doubt themselves and they're inferior to everyone else. And it's not just folks with BPD that split, narcissists split as well. And there's a whole host of other disorders. Actually, I have a video on splitting and other disorders that I'll put at the end of this video that you might find helpful. But let's get back to traits of narcissistic deflection. Here are some common traits that you'll see. Blame shifting. If something goes wrong, it's always your fault. For example, they yell at a waiter and they say, "You made me upset, so I lost my cool." What? Like when you step back, you look at the scenario and what they said, and you usually go, "What?" What about excuse making? That's another one. They always have a reason: stress, traffic, a bad childhood, anything except themselves. So there's no ownership. They're not taking the responsibility for their behavior. Instead, it's always something external. Sometimes it may be you, or perhaps it feels like always it's you. Now, another one is gaslighting through denial. And they flat out deny things that never happened, or you're imagining it, or you're crazy. That never happened, even though you're like, wait a minute, it happened 5 minutes ago. And what happens is over time, as you're gaslit, you start to question your own reality. And that is often an impact of gaslighting. And I have several videos on gaslighting that you might find helpful as well. But the gaslighting through denial, that's another way of deflecting responsibility. Image preservation is another one. Admitting fault feels like weakness, so they rewrite events to protect their reputation and sense of self. So they're always turning any experience or any interaction at either they are the victim, they were just there, someone else created this horrible, horrible experience, and they just have to deal with it. That's a narcissistic conceptualization. And it deflects from their taking responsibility. The last one is a fragile ego defense. And this is responsibility feels like shame to them. So they offload it onto others as fast as possible. I mean, nope, 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 wasn't me, wasn't me. It's like a spider lands on you and you're like, no, 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 get it away, get it away, get it away. Right? It's that sense of responsibility that they can't handle it because it goes back to that maladaptive belief. If I did something wrong, then I'm wrong, I'm broken, I'm guilty, I'm shameful, I'm inferior. And that's why narcissism can be difficult to treat, not impossible. Very, very different. Now, habits that reinforce that deflection. And this is really important. These traits turn into everyday habits that can leave you feeling stuck. Can feel like your head is always spinning like, huh, what? What's going on here? What? Right? That can be rewriting the narratives. So they always look blameless. They're always turning everything onto someone else. Well, I just had to do it because such and such did this or because such and such did that. And we hear about this stuff a lot. Sometimes we hear about it in the news. Sometimes we hear about it with our friends and their partners and their parents, whoever it may be. There's also a tendency for these folks to project faults onto someone else. And in many cases, it could be you. You're the selfish one, not me. You're the stupid one, not me. You're the one who didn't think ahead, not me. And then after a while, you start to internalize that sense of shame, guilt, doubt, inferiority. So you aren't becoming narcissistic. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you start to feel those things. You're not using the maladaptive coping strategies. Instead, you have this core content that is built up. So you end up embracing it and then overtaking, not overtaking it, but taking over that sense of responsibility into yourself. You internalize that belief. Now, another one is they can use charm or humor to brush off serious issues. Now, I think in cases like this, what you're seeing is you're seeing somebody along the narcissistic spectrum, right? So that could be somebody with the full disorder of NPD or traits. And these are typically higher order, more sophisticated individuals that can use that charm or humor to offset something negative that they did or they activated or they should be responsible for. And those people are very, very clever because other people will look at that person and say, oh, it couldn't possibly be him or her. No way. No way. They're so nice. They're so likable and all this other stuff. So it's hard for them to believe it. But the narcissists themselves are really good at using that charm and humor. They're very, very clever, very, very sophisticated. Now, another one would be redirecting conversations. And I see this a lot in therapy. So when you bring up their behavior, suddenly it's about your mistakes. So that I'm not trained well enough as a psychologist, that I haven't seen enough clients with BPD or with narcissists, or I haven't seen a client like him or her before. So I don't really understand what's going on. Things like that. So it's redirecting the conversation. But the goal of the conversation is to identify that core content so they can have a greater sense of control, empowering themselves to grow beyond the core content that drives the maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns, just like we're talking about that deflection of responsibility. And lastly, avoiding apologies or giving fake ones. Something like, I'm sorry you feel that way. Instead of, I was wrong for doing that. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you're so sensitive. Oh man, I hear that one a lot. I'm sorry that you're so emotional. It's so sensitive. And then what happens is you internalize that and think, yeah, I am pretty sensitive. I think being sensitive to other emotions is good. It's how you manage it. But don't allow yourself to be manipulated to think that that's a part of you that's broken or at fault. If you have a good emotional sniffer, you should be proud that you have that you can use that. But if you're being gaslit and there's rewriting of narratives and faults being projected and charm and humor and redirected conversations, your head's just spinning. You don't know where to land. And anyone in that situation would feel that way. It's completely understandable. Let me give you an example. So you tell this person that you believe to have narcissistic personality disorder or narcissistic trait. You tell them, right, you were late to pick me up. Instead of, I'm sorry, they say, well, you're always nagging me, so I didn't rush. The responsibility shifts from them onto you. It's your fault because you nagged them that they didn't rush to pick you up on time. What? Right? That's another one where you go, what? Makes complete and total sense within the maladaptive dynamic. Now, the impact on relationships. So, living with deflection of responsibility creates constant confusion and self doubt. And you start questioning your memory, your judgment, even your reality. And it erodes trust and makes real conflict resolution almost impossible. So, because you're always stuck defending yourself instead of solving the problem, and then over time, it leaves you walking on eggshells, afraid to bring things up at all because you don't know how that person is going to respond, how they're going to deflect that sense of responsibility onto you. Well, let me tell you how to recognize and respond it. So, how do you deal with it? Here we go. I want you to stay grounded in the facts. Focus on what actually happened, not their narrative. Focus on the concrete evidence that you know in your mind occurred. And that may require you to sit back for a second and be like, wait, no, this happened. Avoid chasing accountability. Don't waste energy trying to prove you're right. They'll only move the goalpost on you, right? They're ready for that because one manipulation, all that does is enhance the other, right? Two wrongs don't make a right. They just don't. Two maladaptive approaches don't suddenly make a love affair perfect or make it an adaptive approach. It just doesn't. And you have to set clear boundaries. You could try, for example, and I encourage you, right? I'm not continuing this conversation unless you can own your part. And you have to phrase that in a way that fits for you and your personality. But I think, having those clear boundaries is really important and saying it in a way that that person can hear it. And that can be really tricky. But think about what works with the person that we're talking about, the one who deflects responsibility, and what doesn't. That can teach you a lot about them. And also, you have to detach from their story. So you got to remember deflection is about their shame, guilt, inferiority, all that stuff, not your truth. When you recognize the pattern, you can stop internalizing the blame they're trying to hand you. If you refuse to hold something, then how can you hold it up? Get it? You know what I'm saying? Narcissistic deflection of responsibility isn't about truth. It's about avoiding fear, shame, doubt, guilt, and inferiority. The more you see the pattern, the less power it has over you. Remember, you don't have to carry what doesn't belong to you. Remember that. That's so important. That's such an empowering sense that you choose what you internalize, not your partner, your parent, whoever else that narcissistic individual or individual with narcissistic traits is trying to give you. I hope you found this video helpful. Like, share, subscribe. Check out some of my other videos, and I really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot. Leave some comments about how you've managed this, and also if you found the video helpful and if you liked it. I love to hear stuff like that. Thanks a lot, and take care. Bye-bye.